let's start with the title.
Oh
So your
my.
book, it's called Teaching Fools,
Yeah.
Masters, and Mentors. Why? Why did you choose that? What does it mean to you?
Well, first of all, um, it wasn't the first title. The first title was something unwieldy like Howard Bauer's the buried life of a master carpenter on the south shore of Lake Superior. Blah blah blah. No, I knew that wouldn't work. So I came to Teaching Fools because um, I guess I reached the understanding that there were two teachers involved in this project. Um, and my experience with Howard was that although he didn't suffer fools kindly, um, and he never fancied himself as a teacher, he um, frequently embraced the opportunity to help other people with their projects, and in the process to instruct them. Uh, but when I'm pressed to explain the title, I'm still not completely sure um, that that I know all the possibilities in it. On the one hand, teaching fools um, suggest the very worst connotation when one thinks of teachers. Let's say that I'm a teacher of the old school, and I look at my students and I say, "You're a bunch of fools," and I deign to teach you. I think we've all had a teacher like that at some point in our lives, where the guy made it seem like he was doing us a favor by spending his time on people who were barely educable. Um, the second possibility that I'm aware of is, I guess, what I'd call the Erasmian or Socratic possibility. Erasmus of Rotterdam um, is one of my most important intellectual mentors. He was a humanist scholar at the beginning of the 16th century, one of the earliest translators of the New Testament from Greek, and he wrote this little book to his friend Sir Thomas More, and he called it the Encomium Moriae, which means, loosely speaking, my friend Thomas More is a fool. And the book's a satire, and in it there is um, a character on a stage, um, dressed as a fool in Kappa bells, confronting an audience clearly of adulating people who are bowing and scraping at her. It's a woman. You can make of that what you want, at her presence. And Volley goes on from that point to say that we're all fools. All of us are fools. Maybe 5% of us is rational, and the rest of us is a bundle full of um, enthusiasms, prejudices, um, emotions out of control. You might even say madnesses. Um, think of the most recent game that uh, that the Vikings have played, and uh, look at the camera as it scans across the audience, and you will see people with painted faces, um, horns mounted on their heads, um, uh, their eyes made to look orange, as if they were mad Vikings. These people are clearly wrapped in this enthusiasm of um, adulating the Vikings. I'm that way with golf. I love golf. I'm a golfing fool. I'm no good at it, but it doesn't matter how bad I play. I can't wait to get out there again and do it. All of us have um, our own little enthusiasms, our own little hobby horses that we ride. There's no reason or rhyme to them, but in many respects, they're what make us human. And so Folly gets to the point in the book um, where she runs down a number of um, possible fools who have operated in the world. Socrates is one of them, having taken a fool for his client. And the most important fool of all, says Folly, is Christ. Because Christ celebrates and enthuses and attempts to convert us into understanding that what we cannot see, what is invisible, is reality. It's what's most true. There's nothing more foolish than that. And so that's the second one. Howard and I were both um, teaching fools in that respect because Howard was absolutely in love with carpentry. He told me many times that if he could not get up in the morning and go to his shop and fire up his table saw, then he was effectively dead. He had to be doing it. And I guess to some degree I'm the same way about teaching. Um, there's a lot about the things that surround teaching that I don't like, but the teaching aspect of it is crucial. There's a third one that struck me. When you look at the phrase teaching fools, um, and if you say it just right, if you say teaching fools, that is to say that teaching is kind of a ruse. It's kind of a trick. It's kind of an act of deceit, um, where you meet people where they are in terms of their prejudices, and in spite of those prejudices, you find a way to win them over to what you believe they need to know. Case in point, a friend of mine, Scott Hall, took me into his teaching classes a number of times to teach Shakespeare, 9th, 10th, 11th grade, Romeo and Juliet. And these kids had no interest in, Shakespeare. They had marginal interest in Romeo and Juliet, except perhaps for Leonardo DiCaprio. And it was our job to try to provide some background about Shakespeare, Shakespeare's time, who would come to the shows, what those shows would be like, and then parcel out several scenes to them and make them responsible for seeing themselves in those scenes. And to make a long story short, for the most part, we were really successful in doing that. They were pretty skeptical about us when we walked in. When we left, it seemed like they were having a good time. And Scott's and my intention was to make them believe that they were in there. Shakespeare's plays instead of being alien pieces of material to them, um, are things that they ought to be able to see themselves inscribed on them. They're all over these plays. But to get them there required an act of trickery. And in my way of looking at things, um, a lot of really good and exciting teaching involves trickery. And Howard told me himself that um, when he was hired on at a place in Fairfax, Virginia, to 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 clear bottlenecks, um, uh, he approached that job um, with a trick. He fired everybody on who were responsible for framing. He just cleared the deck. And he went out on the streets and he collected a bunch of people who didn't know anything about carpentry or very little. And he collected them around him and he said, I'm going to teach you how to frame. And he looked at them and they all looked frightened and nervous and um, skeptical. And he went ahead and threw a bunch of 2x4s on the deck and um, framed a window, framed a door, and he said, "Okay, guys, here we go. We're diving in. We're going to do it. It's really easy. Just follow my basic instruction, and we're going to frame this wall." And that's what he did. And it succeeded, maybe in some cases too well, because some people got so full of themselves that they thought they knew maybe more about carpentry than they actually did. But that approach, that trick approach that he used to nominally instruct a bunch of know-nothings to begin the task of framing is exactly what he did for me. Showed up one Saturday morning. Hi, Bill. Going to teach you how to frame. Um, throw the wood down, 2x6s. They're all over the place. Let's get up on this dance floor, Bill, and let's frame a wall. And that's exactly what we did, except that before the wall was finished, Howard jumped in his rattle-trap truck, backed up into the driveway, hit a tree, backed up again onto the street, and took off. Who was that masked man? I wanted to thank him. But he played a trick on me, and it was a good trick. He inspired me to believe that I could frame and that I could proceed in the rest of the framing tasks in the building from that point on. So I'm indebted to him for that. Good teaching.